Eli Mercer dropped to his knees in the frozen hay. His hands shook as he touched her face, cold as death itself. The woman's arms were wrapped tight around a tiny bundle. A baby, still breathing, barely. "Don't you die on me," he whispered. "Not tonight. Not in my barn." He'd buried his wife and daughter 6 years ago, swore he'd never feel this fear again, but here it was ripping through his chest like a blade. Christmas Eve, 1883. The night everything changed. If you want to see how this story ends, subscribe to our channel and follow along to the very last word. Drop a comment below. Tell me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Eli Mercer heard the cry before he saw anything. He stopped dead in the snow lantern, raised breath hanging white in the air. Wind howled across the Wyoming plains, but underneath it, there. Again. A sound that didn't belong. A baby crying. His heart slammed against his ribs. He hadn't heard that sound in 6 years, not since Lucy. "Hello?" His voice came out rough, unused. "Anyone there?" The cry came from the barn, weak, desperate, dying. Eli ran. His boots punched through knee-deep snow. The barn door hung crooked on its hinges, banging in the wind. He'd closed it at sunset. He remembered. Someone had opened it. Inside, the horses stamped and snorted, nervous. They knew something was wrong. "Where are you?" Eli raised the lantern higher. Shadows jumped and stretched across the walls. "I ain't gonna hurt you. Just tell me where—" The cry again, above him, the hayloft. He grabbed the ladder with one hand, climbed fast. The old wood groaned under his weight. Didn't matter. Nothing mattered except that sound. At the top, he swung the lantern wide and stopped breathing. A woman lay curled in the loose hay. Young. Too young to be out here alone. Her body was wrapped around a small bundle, a baby crying weakly, barely audible now. Both of them wore summer clothes. Cotton dress, thin blanket, nothing else. In December, in Wyoming, in the worst blizzard of the year. Jesus Christ! Eli set the lantern down and moved to them. The woman didn't stir when he touched her shoulder. Her skin felt like ice through the worn fabric. Her lips were blue. Her dark hair was crusted with frost. The baby, a girl, he realized, with a shock of brown hair peeking from the blanket, had stopped crying. Her eyes were closed. Her tiny chest barely moved. They were dying. Both of them. Right here in his barn. "No." The word tore out of him. "No, you don't get to die here. Not tonight." He stripped off his heavy coat, wrapped it around them both. The woman was light, too light, like she hadn't eaten in weeks. He lifted her with one arm, cradled the baby against his chest with the other. The baby's heartbeat fluttered against his ribs, weak. But there. "Hold on," he told them. "Just hold on." The cabin was 50 yards away. 50 yards through waist-deep snow and cutting wind. Eli made it in what felt like hours, but was probably minutes. He kicked the door open, laid them on the rug near the fireplace. The fire had burned low, just embers. He built it up fast, hands shaking. Kindling, split logs, more kindling. The flames caught, grew through heat across their pale faces. The woman still hadn't moved. Eli worked through the night. Warm water, not hot that would be dangerous, applied carefully to their hands and feet. Blankets from his own bed. The baby he wrapped in wool and flannel, held close to share body heat. She was so small, so fragile. Her tiny fingers were mottled purple, but slowly pink crept back into them. "That's it," Eli murmured. "Come on back now. Come on." The baby stirred, made a small sound. Her eyes fluttered open, blue-gray, clear as mountain water, and looked right at him. Something cracked open in Eli's chest, something he'd kept locked away for 6 years. "Hey there, little one." His voice came out thick. "You're safe now. I got you." The baby's hand reached up, grabbed his finger, held on tight. Eli couldn't breathe. Near dawn, the woman stirred. Her eyes flew open, dark brown, wide with terror, and she tried to scramble backward away from him. "Please." Her voice cracked like broken glass. "Please don't hurt us. Please. I'll leave. I'll go right now. Just don't." "Easy." Eli kept his voice low, his movements slow. "Easy, ma'am. You're safe. I ain't gonna hurt you or the baby." "Emma." The woman's wild eyes searched the room. "Where's Emma? Where's my—" "She's right here." Eli turned slightly so the woman could see the baby sleeping against his chest. "She's warm. Fed her some milk earlier. She's doing fine." The woman stared at her daughter. Tears spilled down her cheeks, cutting tracks through the grime on her face. "She's alive," the woman whispered. "Oh God, she's alive." "So are you. Barely." Eli studied her face. Young. Maybe mid-20s. Pretty under the exhaustion and fear. "What's your name, Clara?" She wiped her eyes with a shaking hand. "Clara Bennett." "I'm Eli Mercer. This is my ranch." He paused. "You want to tell me what you were doing freezing to death in my barn on Christmas Eve, Mrs. Bennett?" Clara flinched at the question. Or maybe at the Mrs. "It's just Clara now," she said quietly. "My husband passed 8 months ago." Eli nodded once, didn't offer condolences. Words were cheap for grief like that, he knew. "The wagon train," Clara continued, her voice steadier now. "We were headed to California. I had family there, but Emma got sick and I couldn't keep up. The wagon master said they couldn't wait." Eli's jaw tightened. "They left you?" "At a trading post. Said someone else would come through, take us the rest of the way." Clara laughed bitterly. "No one came. For 3 weeks. When my money ran out, the owner threw us out. In winter. He said it wasn't his problem." Clara's hands clenched in the blankets. "I walked. I don't know how many days. I just kept walking until I saw your barn. I thought—" Her voice broke. "I thought we'd rest for a few hours. I didn't mean to take anything. I just needed to get Emma out of the cold." "You walked through a blizzard with a baby. What else was I supposed to do?" Clara's chin came up. There it was, fire underneath the exhaustion. Let her freeze in the open. At least the barn had walls. At least— She stopped, swallowed hard. "I'm sorry," she said, quieter now. "I'll leave as soon as I can stand. I won't trouble you anymore." Eli stared at her for a long moment. This woman. This stubborn, desperate, half-frozen woman who'd walked through hell to keep her baby alive. Who was sitting here apologizing for taking shelter in his barn. "You ain't going anywhere," he said. Clara's face went pale. "Mr. Mercer." "It's 20 below outside. Snow's piled higher than the windows. You try to leave, now you'll be dead before you hit the tree line." Eli's voice was flat. Certain. "You're staying here until the weather breaks. That's not a request. I can't impose." "You ain't imposing. I'm telling you what's happening." He met her eyes. "You got a problem with that?" Clara opened her mouth, closed it. "No," she finally said. "No, I don't." "Good." Eli stood careful not to jostle the sleeping baby. "You hungry? I got broth on the stove. Bread from last week, but it's still good." Clara nodded slowly, watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Mr. Mercer." "Eli." "Eli." She hesitated. "Why are you doing this?" "You don't know me. You don't owe me anything." Eli paused at the stove. The fire crackled. Emma's soft breathing filled the cabin. "Because it's Christmas," he said without turning around. "And because any man who'd turn out a mother and child in weather like this ain't worth the clothes on his back." He heard Clara's sharp intake of breath behind him. "Now eat something," he added. "You look about ready to fall over." Kid. The next few hours passed in a strange, fragile peace. Clara ate slowly at first, then with desperate hunger. Eli brought her more bread, some dried beef, a cup of hot coffee. She drank it all, eyes half closed with exhaustion and relief. Emma woke twice. The first time Clara nursed her while Eli turned his back, giving them privacy. The second time the baby fussed and wouldn't settle. "May I?" Eli asked. Clara hesitated, then nodded. Eli took Emma, carefully supporting her head the way he remembered, the way he'd held Lucy a lifetime ago. He walked the cabin with her, humming low and tuneless. Emma quieted almost instantly. Her small body relaxed against his chest. Her fingers grabbed his shirt and held on. "She don't usually take to strangers," Clara said softly. "After everything that happened, being left all those unfamiliar faces, she screams if anyone but me holds her." Eli looked down at the baby in his arms. Those blue-gray eyes stared back at him, solemn and trusting. "Maybe she knows," he said. Knows what? Eli didn't answer. Couldn't. His throat was too tight. He thought of another baby, another pair of small hands, another weight against his chest that had gone still and cold while he watched, helpless, unable to save her. Lucy. His Lucy. Gone for 6 years, and still the wound bled fresh. Clara fell asleep on the settee near the fire. Eli covered her with blankets, made sure she was warm. Emma slept too, nestled in a dresser drawer he'd lined with soft wool. The makeshift cradle sat close to the hearth, close to warmth. Eli sat alone in the darkness, watching them breathe. What was he doing? He'd built this solitude deliberately. After Maggie and Lucy died, he'd closed every door shut, every window, locked his heart in a box, and buried it deep. 6 years of silence. 6 years of going through the motions. Eating, working, sleeping. Not living, just existing. It had been easier that way. Safer. And now there was breathing in his cabin besides his own. A woman's soft sighs. A baby's tiny snuffles. 2 lives where there had been none. Eli's eyes drifted to the door at the end of the hallway. Lucy's room. He hadn't opened it since the day they buried her. Couldn't. Everything was still in there, the small bed he'd built, the rag doll Maggie had sewn, the wooden rattle he'd carved. All of it waiting for a little girl who would never come home. His chest ached. "I don't know what I'm doing, Maggie," he whispered into the darkness. "I don't know why they're here. I don't know what God wants from me." Silence answered. Eli dropped his head into his hands. He was so tired. Tired of being alone. Tired of the quiet. Tired of waking up every morning with nothing to look forward to but more of the same. And these two. This woman and her daughter. They needed him. When was the last time anyone had needed him? Dawn broke pale and cold. Eli was already up, had been for hours. He'd made coffee, fed the horses, checked the storm damage. When Clara woke, the cabin was warm and breakfast was waiting. "You didn't have to do all this," she said, staring at the eggs and fresh toasted bread. "Had to eat anyway." Eli shrugged. "Sit down before it gets cold." They ate in silence. Awkward at first, then gradually easier. Emma babbled in her drawer cradle, happy with a strip of soft leather to chew on. "How long do you reckon the storm will last?" Clara asked. "Few days, maybe a week. Hard to say." Clara nodded, her expression unreadable. "And after that?" "After that you decide what you want to do." Eli met her eyes. "But don't think about leaving until you're strong enough to travel. Both of you." "And how long will that take?" "Long as it takes." Clara set down her fork. "Why are you really doing this, Eli?" He should have had an easy answer. Christian charity. Common decency. The simple fact that she had nowhere else to go. But the truth was more complicated than that. The truth was that Emma's grip on his finger had unlocked something he thought was dead. The truth was that Clara's fire, her stubborn refusal to give up, reminded him of someone he'd loved and lost. The truth was that this cabin felt more alive with them in it than it had in 6 years. The truth was that he was terrified. "Because someone should," he said finally. "And I'm here." Clara studied him for a long moment. Whatever she saw in his face made her eyes soften. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For Emma. For me. For everything. Don't thank me yet. Eli cleared the dishes. You haven't seen what I'm like when I'm cooped up with a blizzard for a week. For the first time since he'd found her, Clara smiled. It was small, fragile, barely there, but it lit up her whole face. And Eli felt something shift in his chest. Something dangerous. Something that felt entirely too much like hope. The storm raged on. Days blurred together. Eli worked outside when he could. The animals still needed care but spent more time in the cabin than he had in years. Clara insisted on helping despite his protests. I ain't gonna sit here like a lump while you do everything, she said, already kneading bread dough. That ain't who I am. You're supposed to be resting. I've rested enough. Her hands moved with practiced confidence. I need to be useful. It's how I'm built. Eli understood that. Work was how he'd survived after Maggie died, keeping his hands busy so his mind couldn't wander to dark places. Fine, he said. But you sit down if you get tired. Yes, sir. Clara's tone was dry, but she was smiling again. That smile. It kept catching him off guard. Three days into the storm, Emma learned to sit up on her own. Clara gasped and clapped her hands. Look at you. Look at my big girl. Emma wobbled, nearly toppled, then steadied herself. Her face split into a gummy grin. She's been trying for weeks, Clara said, eyes shining. I didn't think she had the strength after being so sick. But look at her. Eli watched from across the room. Something warm spread through his chest. She's a fighter, he said. Like her mama. Clara looked up at him. Their eyes held for a moment too long. She looked away, first cheeks flushing pink. The bread's probably ready. She stood quickly, moved to the stove. Eli watched her go. Dangerous. This was dangerous. He knew it. Felt it. Should do something about it. But he didn't move. Didn't speak. Just sat there watching Clara check the bread, watching Emma babble happily on her blanket, watching his empty cabin come alive around him. For the first time in 6 years, Eli Mercer didn't feel alone, and that terrified him more than any blizzard ever could. On the 5th night, Emma wouldn't settle. Clara had been up with her for hours. Exhaustion lined her face, darkened the circles under her eyes. Let me try, Eli offered. I can handle it. I know you can, but you don't have to. He held out his arms. Let me help. Clara hesitated. Then slowly she handed Emma over. The baby's crying softened immediately. Within minutes, she was asleep against Eli's chest, her small hand clutching his shirt. Clara stared at them both. How do you do that? She whispered. She never calms down that fast, not even for me. Eli looked down at the sleeping baby. Her face was peaceful, trusting. I don't know, he admitted. Maybe she just knows I won't let anything happen to her. She's never trusted anyone like this. Clara's voice cracked. Not since Samuel died. Not since we were left behind. She's been so scared and I couldn't. She pressed her hand to her mouth, tears spilling over. I couldn't make her feel safe again. I tried. God knows I tried. You kept her alive. Eli's voice was firm. Through everything, losing your husband, being abandoned, walking through a blizzard, you kept her alive. That's more than trying, Clara. That's everything. Clara shook her head, but she was crying harder now. All the fear, all the exhaustion, all the desperate loneliness finally breaking through. Eli did something he hadn't done in 6 years. He reached out and took her hand. Clara's fingers closed around his, held on tight. They sat like that in the firelight, a broken man, a desperate woman, and a sleeping baby, while the storm raged outside and something fragile began to grow between them. Something that felt like family, something that felt like home. Later, much later, Eli lay awake in the darkness. Clara and Emma were asleep on the settee, breathing softly. The fire had burned low, casting dancing shadows across the walls. His eyes drifted again to Lucy's door. 6 years. 6 years since Maggie had screamed in that room. 6 years since the doctor had shaken his head. 6 years since Eli had held his daughter and watched her slip away. He'd sworn he'd never feel that pain again. Sworn he'd never let anyone close enough to hurt him. And now there was Clara. Clara with her stubborn chin and her soft smile, and her fire that wouldn't die no matter how hard life tried to snuff it out. Now there was Emma. Emma, with her trusting eyes, and her tiny fingers, and her way of looking at him like he was the safest place in the world. They would leave eventually. When the storm broke, when spring came, when Clara was strong enough to travel. They'd go to California, find her family, build a new life. And Eli would be alone again. The thought sat heavy in his chest, like a stone. But what could he offer them? A hard life on an isolated ranch. A man too broken by grief to love properly. A cabin full of ghosts and locked doors. They deserved better. Both of them. They deserved everything he couldn't give. Eli turned his face to the wall and tried not to think about how empty this cabin would feel when they were gone. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, 3 hearts beat in the darkness. And somewhere between them, something was beginning that none of them could stop, even if they'd wanted to. The storm broke on the 7th day. Clara stood at the window watching the clouds part for the first time in a week. Pale winter sunlight spilled across the snow, making it glitter like scattered diamonds. "It's over," she said quietly. Eli looked up from the harness he was mending, his hands stilled. "Looks like it." Neither of them moved. Neither said what they were both thinking. That clear weather meant travel was possible again, that roads would open, that decisions would need to be made. Emma babbled happily on her blanket, oblivious to the tension that had suddenly filled the cabin. "I should check the stock," Eli said, standing abruptly. "Been a week since I could get to the far pasture." "Of course." He grabbed his coat, his hat, paused at the door. "Clara." She turned to look at him. "Don't." He stopped, started again. "Don't make any decisions yet. About leaving. The roads won't be clear for days still." Something flickered in her eyes. Hope. Fear. Both. "I won't," she said softly. Eli nodded once and walked out into the cold. Clara watched him go until he disappeared over the ridge. Then she pressed her forehead against the frosted glass and let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. What was she doing? She had a plan. California. Her cousin. A new start. But every day in this cabin made that plan feel more like a fantasy. Her cousin's last letter had been lukewarm, at best. "Times are hard. We'll see what we can manage." Not exactly a warm welcome. And Eli. Clara closed her eyes. Eli with his quiet strength, his careful hands, the way he looked at Emma like she was something precious, the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. She wasn't supposed to feel this way. Samuel had been gone less than a year. Good women didn't have these thoughts. Good widows didn't. Mama. Clara spun around. Emma was reaching for her face, crumpling into a cry. "I'm here, sweetheart." Clara scooped her up, held her close. "Mama's right here." Emma grabbed a fistful of her hair, instantly comforted. Whatever Clara felt about Eli, it didn't matter. Emma was what mattered. Emma's future. Emma's safety. She couldn't afford to want things for herself. She'd learned that lesson the hard way. The afternoon passed slowly. Clara cleaned, cooked, tried to keep busy, but her eyes kept drifting to the window watching for Eli's return. He came back near sunset, stamping snow from his boots at the door. "Everything all right?" Clara asked, trying to sound casual. "Lost 2 head of cattle to the storm. Found them in the ravine." Eli's jaw was tight. Could have been worse. I'm sorry. He shrugged, hanging up his coat. Part of ranching. You lose some. Clara handed him a cup of coffee. Their fingers brushed. Eli's eyes met hers for a moment, then looked away. I was thinking, Clara said carefully, about what I can do to repay you for. I told you, you don't owe me anything. And I told you I ain't the kind to sit idle. Clara lifted her chin. The cabin needs work. Mending, cleaning. Things a woman's hand is good for. Let me do that at least. Let me earn our keep until the road's clear. Eli studied her face. You're stubborn as a mule, you know that. I've been told. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. Fine, he said. But you rest when you need to. I won't have you working yourself sick. Deal. They shook on it. Eli's hand was warm, rough with calluses. Clara felt the touch all the way down to her bones. Dangerous, she reminded herself. This is dangerous. But she didn't pull away. Not immediately. Neither did he. That night, after Emma was asleep, they sat by the fire in companionable silence. It had become a ritual over the past week, these quiet evening hours when the world outside ceased to exist. Can I ask you something? Clara said. Eli nodded, staring into the flames. The room at the end of the hall. The one that's always locked. She hesitated. What's in there? Eli's whole body went rigid. For a long moment, Clara thought he wouldn't answer. Thought she'd pushed too far, asked too much. Then he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. My daughter's room. Clara's breath caught. You have a daughter. Had. The word came out rough, broken. Lucy. She died 6 years ago. She was 3 months old. Oh, Eli. Scarlet fever took her. Took my wife too, trying to nurse her. Eli's hands clenched on his knees. I buried them both under the cottonwood tree out back. Same day. Same grave. Clara didn't speak. Couldn't. What words could possibly be enough? After that, I closed up the room. Eli continued. Everything's still in there. The cradle I built. The doll Maggie sewed. The clothes we'd made. His voice cracked. I couldn't touch any of it. Couldn't even open the door. 6 years, Clara whispered. 6 years. Eli finally looked at her. His gray eyes were wet. I stopped living that day, Clara. Started just existing. Getting through one day to the next. Waiting for it to be over. And now, Eli was quiet for a long moment. Now I don't know anymore, he admitted. You and Emma, you've woken something up in me. Something I thought was dead. Jerry, he shook his head. I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't know what to do with it. Clara reached out and took his hand. Maybe you don't have to know, she said softly. Maybe you just have to feel it. Eli looked down at their joined hands. When he looked back up, there was something raw in his eyes, something hungry and terrified all at once. I'm scared, Clara. I know. She squeezed his fingers. I am too. They sat like that until the fire burned low, holding on to each other in the darkness, two broken people trying to find their way back to the light. 2 days later, Eli rode into town for supplies. Clara had offered to come, but he'd insisted she stay with Emma. The roads were still treacherous, and the ride was long. I'll be back by nightfall, he promised. Be careful. He'd nodded, touched his hat, and ridden away. Now Clara waited, watching the sun track slowly across the sky. Emma napped. The cabin was silent. Too silent. Clara found herself wandering the halls, restless. Her feet stopped outside the locked door. Lucy's room. She stood there for a long moment, hand hovering near the wood. She wouldn't open it. Would never intrude on Eli's grief without permission. But something about the door called to her. Maybe because she understood what it meant to lock away pain. To build walls around the parts of yourself that hurt too much to touch. I know what you feel like, she whispered to the door. Like if you open it, everything will come flooding out and you'll drown. No answer. Of course no answer. But somehow saying the words out loud helped. Clara turned away and went to check on Emma. Eli returned as promised just as the sun was setting. But he wasn't alone. Clara heard hoofbeats more than one horse and her heart seized. She grabbed Emma, moved away from the window. The door opened. Eli came in first, face carefully blank. Behind him was a woman, 50, maybe older, silver hair pinned beneath a practical bonnet, sharp eyes that took in everything. Clara, Eli said, this is Martha Calloway. She runs the general store in town with her husband. And I'm nosy as a cat in a dairy, Martha added, pushing past Eli. Which is why I invited myself along when I heard Eli had company for the first time in 6 years. Her eyes landed on Emma. Oh, would you look at that precious thing? Clara clutched Emma tighter. Mrs. Calloway. Martha. Everyone calls me Martha. The older woman studied Clara with uncomfortable intensity. So, you're the one folks are talking about. Talking about? Oh, honey. Martha laughed. You think a woman and baby appearing at Eli Mercer's ranch isn't the biggest news this town's had all winter. Tongues have been wagging since Henry Pike saw the wagon tracks 3 days ago. Clara's cheeks burned. There's nothing improper happening here. Mr. Mercer has been nothing but a gentleman. I know. Martha waved a hand. That man's so proper, he'd apologize to a fence post for bumping it. I ain't suggesting otherwise. She paused. But other folks might. Which is why I came to see for myself. And what do you see? Clara asked, her chin coming up. Martha's eyes softened. I see a young woman who's been through hell and landed on her feet. I see a baby who looks healthy and loved. And I see Eli Mercer smiling for the first time since we buried Maggie and Lucy. Clara glanced at Eli. He was standing by the door, arms crossed, face unreadable. So here's what's going to happen, Martha continued. You're going to let me help you make this right. Get ahead of the gossip before it turns ugly. She fixed Clara with a stern look. This town can be kind, but it can also be cruel, especially to women on their own. You understand? Clara understood. She'd learned that lesson at the trading post when the owner had thrown her and Emma into the snow with nothing but the clothes on their backs. What do you suggest? She asked. Martha smiled. First we get you some proper clothes. That dress is falling apart. Then we figure out your situation, where you came from, where you're going. Give folks a story that makes sense. She glanced at Eli. And then, well, then we see what happens. Clara spent the next hour answering Martha's questions. Where she was from. How she'd ended up in Wyoming. What had happened to Samuel. Martha listened without judgment, nodding occasionally, her sharp eyes missing nothing. California, she said when Clara finished. Your cousin there. Yes. You got money for the passage. Clara's silence was answer enough. Martha sighed. That's what I figured. She looked at Eli, who'd been silent through the whole conversation. She could work, in town. The hotel needs a maid. It ain't much, but it's something. She's not working at the hotel. Eli set his voice hard. Martha's eyebrows rose. Oh, she's staying here, until she's ready to travel. That's what we agreed. Is it? Martha looked between them, a knowing smile playing at her lips. Well, that's your business, I suppose. She stood, smoothing her skirts. I should get back before dark, but I'll be by again, Clara. Bring you some fabric. That baby needs new clothes, too. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. Martha's voice softened. But I remember what it's like to be young and alone and scared. I wasn't lucky enough to land with someone like Eli. So let me help now. Pay it forward, like they say. Clara's throat tightened. Thank you. Martha patted her cheek. You're welcome, honey. Now, you two behave yourselves. She winked at Eli, actually winked, and swept out the door. The cabin felt twice as quiet after she left. "I'm sorry about that," Eli said. "I didn't invite her. She just appeared." "It's all right." Clara managed a small smile. "She means well. She's a busybody is what she is." But there was no heat in his voice. "Still, she's right about the gossip. This town, people talk." "I know. If it bothers you." "It doesn't." Clara met his eyes. "Let them talk. I've survived worse than gossip." Eli looked at her for a long moment. Something warm flickered in his gaze. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I reckon you have." The next few days brought change. Martha was true to her word, arriving with fabric and thread and more food than Clara knew what to do with. She taught Clara the names of the neighbors, the layout of the town, the unwritten rules that govern survival in this tight-knit community. "Dr. Hayes is a good man," Martha said, hemming a dress for Emma. "If the baby gets sick, don't hesitate to call him. He won't charge you if you can't pay. And the Reverend Thomas Whitfield, circuit preacher, comes through every few weeks." Martha smiled. "Good sermons. Better heart." Clara absorbed it all, building a mental map of this place she'd stumbled into by accident. It felt strange to put down roots, even temporarily. She'd been running for so long, she'd forgotten what it felt like to stay. But more than the town, it was Eli who drew her attention. He was different now. More present, more alive. He smiled, more talked, more laughed at Emma's antics instead of watching from a distance. And he looked at Clara differently too. She caught him watching her sometimes when he thought she wasn't paying attention. His gray eyes would track her movements across the cabin, soften when she spoke, darken with something that made her breath catch. She knew that look. Had seen it in Samuel's eyes when they first courted. Dangerous, she reminded herself every time. Dangerous. But the word was losing its power. One evening, Clara was washing dishes when Emma started to fuss. "I've got her," Eli said, already moving. Clara watched him lift the baby, settle her against his chest with practiced ease. Emma's crying stopped instantly. She grabbed his collar with both tiny hands and made a contented sound. "She loves you," Clara said softly. Eli's expression was complicated. "She's easy to love. Not for everyone. Not after what she's been through." Clara dried her hands, turned to face him fully. "She doesn't trust people anymore. Being abandoned passed from stranger to stranger. It broke something in her. But with you..." She shook her head. "It's like she knows." "Knows what?" "That you won't hurt her. That you're safe." Eli looked down at Emma. The baby was already drowsy, her eyes drifting closed. "I would never hurt her," he said quietly. "Or you." Clara's heart squeezed. "I know." Their eyes met across the firelit room. The air between them felt charged electric. Eli opened his mouth to speak, and that's when Emma said her first word. "Da." The sound was clear, unmistakable. Emma was looking right at Eli, her tiny hand patting his cheek. "Da," she said again. Clara's hand flew to her mouth. Eli had gone completely still. His face was white, his eyes wide. "She..." His voice cracked. "She called me. Da." Emma giggled, delighted with herself. "Da da da." Something broke in Eli's face. His composure crumbled. Tears spilled down his cheeks, the first Clara had ever seen him shed. He held Emma closer, buried his face in her tiny shoulder, and wept. Clara moved without thinking. She crossed the room, wrapped her arms around them both. Eli's free hand came up to grip her arm, holding on, like she was the only thing keeping him from drowning. They stood like that for a long time, the three of them tangled together in the firelight. When Eli finally lifted his head, his eyes were red, but something in them had changed. Something had shifted, opened. "I never thought I'd hear that word again," he whispered. "I never thought..." "I know," Clara touched his cheek, wiped away a tear with her thumb. I know. Clara. His voice was rough. I need to tell you something. You don't have to. I do. He met her eyes. I've been fighting this. Fighting what I feel. Because I'm scared. Because I don't deserve another chance. Because every time I look at you and Emma, I think about Maggie and Lucy, and I feel like I'm betraying them. Clara's breath caught. Eli. But I can't fight it anymore. His hand came up to cup her face. I don't want to fight it anymore. You make me want to live again, Clara. Really live. And that terrifies me, but... He swallowed hard. But I'd rather be terrified with you than safe without you. Clara stared at him, heart pounding. This was it. The moment she'd been dreading and hoping for all at once. The moment where she had to decide. She thought of Samuel, of the life they'd planned, of the promises she'd made at his grave. Then she thought of Eli, of his quiet strength, his gentle hands, the way he looked at Emma like she hung the moon. I'm scared too, she admitted. I don't know how to do this again. I don't know if I'm ready. I'll wait. Eli's thumb stroked her cheekbone. As long as you need. I ain't going anywhere. What if I'm never ready? Then I'll spend my life being grateful for whatever time we have. His voice was steady, certain. You and Emma. You're the first good thing that's happened to me in 6 years. However long I get to keep you, I'll take it. Clara felt tears spilling down her own cheeks now. You're a good man, Eli Mercer. I'm trying to be. He leaned his forehead against hers. For you. For Emma. For myself. Emma squirmed between them, making a happy sound. Both adults laughed, the tension breaking. I think she approves, Clara said. She's got good taste. Eli kissed Emma's forehead. Then hesitantly, he pressed a kiss to Clara's forehead too. It was gentle, chaste. A promise rather than a demand. Clara closed her eyes and let herself feel it. Hope. That's what this was. Hope, fragile and terrifying and wonderful. Maybe she wasn't ready for anything more than this. Maybe it would take weeks, months, years. But for the first time since Samuel died, Clara Bennett allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could love again. That night after Clara and Emma were asleep, Eli walked to the end of the hallway. He stood before the locked door for a long time. His hand trembled as he reached for the key in his pocket. The key he'd carried for 6 years, but never used. He thought of Clara's words, about opening doors and drowning in what came out. He thought of Emma calling him Da, of Clara's tears on his chest, of the warmth he'd felt holding them both. Slowly, carefully, he fitted the key into the lock. The click seemed to echo through the whole cabin. Eli's hand closed around the doorknob. He didn't open it, not yet. But for the first time in 6 years, he knew he could. Someday soon. When he was ready. He released the knob, stepped back, and let out a breath. I'm trying, Maggie, he whispered into the darkness. I'm trying to come back. No answer came. But somehow, standing there in the hallway of his quiet cabin, Eli could have sworn he felt something brush against his cheek. Light as a kiss. Warm as forgiveness. He walked back to the main room, checked that Clara and Emma were still sleeping peacefully, and settled into his chair by the fire. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions, new chances to mess everything up or get it right. But tonight, Eli Mercer slept without nightmares for the first time in 6 years. And in his dreams, a little girl with his gray eyes laughed and played under a cottonwood tree, free and happy, and finally at peace. The second blizzard hit 3 weeks after the first. Eli saw it coming. Dark clouds banking against the mountains, temperature dropping fast. He spent 2 days preparing, hauling extra firewood, securing the animals, reinforcing the barn doors. How bad? Clara asked, watching him stack logs by the fireplace. Bad enough. He straightened, wiping his hands. Could be a week, maybe longer. We'll manage. Eli looked at her. 3 weeks had changed Clara Bennett. The hollows in her cheeks had filled out. Color had returned to her skin. She moved through the cabin with confidence now, like she belonged there. Because she did. Eli felt it in his bones. "Yeah," he said quietly. "We will." The storm hit that night with a fury that shook the cabin walls. Wind screamed across the plains. Snow piled against the windows until they couldn't see out. Inside, the fire burned bright. Emma slept peacefully in her drawer cradle. Clara sat mending one of Eli's shirts, her needle moving with steady precision. Eli watched her from his chair. "You're staring," Clara said without looking up. "Am I?" "You are." A smile tugged at her lips. "Something on your mind, everything Eli thought. You, Emma, the way this cabin feels like home again." "Just thinking," he said instead. Clara set down her mending, met his eyes. "About what?" "About how different things are. From a month ago. From a year ago." He paused. "From 6 years ago." Clara was quiet for a moment. "Good different or bad different?" "Good." The word came out rough. Scary, but good. Clara rose from her chair, crossed the room, sat down on the arm of his chair close enough that he could smell lavender in her hair. "I've been thinking too," she said softly, "about California. About not going to California." Eli's heart stopped. "What?" "My cousin's letter. It wasn't welcoming, Eli. Times are hard, we'll see what we can manage. That's not someone who wants us there." Clara's voice trembled slightly. "I've been telling myself it would work out. That family is family. But the truth is..." "The truth is what?" Clara looked down at her hands. "The truth is, I don't want to go. I've been looking for excuses to stay, and I finally realized I don't need an excuse." She met his eyes again. "I want to stay. Here. With you. If you'll have us." Eli couldn't breathe. For 3 weeks he'd been bracing himself for the day she'd leave. Building walls around his heart again, trying to protect himself from the inevitable loss. And now... "You want to stay," he repeated, voice barely a whisper. "I want to stay." Clara's hand found his. "Emma loves you. She calls you Da every chance she gets. And I..." She took a shaky breath. "I'm falling for you, Eli Mercer. I didn't mean to. I didn't plan it. But here I am, and I don't want to run from it anymore." Eli stood abruptly. Clara flinched back, uncertainty flooding her face. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have..." He pulled her into his arms. Clara made a small sound of surprise, then melted against him. Her arms came up around his neck. Her face pressed into his shoulder. "I thought I'd lost this," Eli said into her hair. "The chance to feel this way again. I thought it died with Maggie and Lucy." "Eli, stay." His arms tightened around her. "Please, stay forever, you and Emma. Let me be your family. Let me take care of you both." Clara pulled back just enough to look at him. Tears shone in her eyes. "Is that a proposal, Eli Mercer?" He hadn't meant it to be. The words had tumbled out on their own, unplanned, unpolished. But now that they hung in the air between them, he realized they were exactly right. "Yes," he said. "It is. I ain't got a ring. I ain't got pretty words. All I've got is this ranch, and these 2 hands and a heart that's been dead for 6 years until you brought it back to life." He cupped her face in his calloused palms. "Marry me, Clara. Let me be Emma's father. Let me spend the rest of my days trying to make you happy." Clara laughed through her tears. "You're serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. We've only known each other a month. I knew Maggie 3 days before I proposed to her." Eli's thumb brushed her cheek. "When you know, and I know Clara. I know you're supposed to be here. I know Emma's supposed to be mine. I know this is right." Clara stared at him. Her lips parted. Her breath came fast and shallow. Yes, she whispered. Eli blinked. Yes. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll stay. Yes to all of it. She grabbed the front of his shirt, pulled him closer. Now kiss me before I change my mind. Eli kissed her. It wasn't gentle this time. It wasn't a careful promise. It was fire and hunger and 6 years of loneliness crashing into 3 weeks of desperate hope. Clara kissed him back with equal fervor. Her fingers tangled in his hair. Her body pressed close against his. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Eli rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he said. I should have said that first. Clara laughed shakily. You said it now. That's what matters. I love you, he said again because he could. Because he needed to. I love you, Clara Bennett. I love you too, Eli Mercer. She touched his face, traced the scar on his cheek. God help me. I love you too. Behind them, Emma stirred in her cradle. Made a happy sound. Da, she babbled. Da da da. Both adults laughed. See, Clara said. She approves. Smart girl. Eli pulled Clara close again, tucked her under his arm. Takes after her mama. They stood together in the firelight, the storm raging outside, warmth and love, holding them safe inside. For the first time in 6 years, Eli Mercer felt whole. The storm lasted 5 more days. 5 days of being trapped together. 5 days of learning each other's rhythms, each other's habits, each other's hearts. Eli told Clara about his time in the army, about the things he'd seen, the things he'd done, about the nightmares that still sometimes woke him in the dark. Clara told him about Samuel, the good parts and the hard parts, the way his death had shattered her, the way Emma had put her back together piece by fragile piece. I wasn't sure I'd ever feel whole again, she admitted one night lying in his arms by the fire. After Samuel died, it was like part of me went with him. I know that feeling. But now, Clara traced circles on his chest. Now I think maybe we don't have to be the same people we were before. Maybe losing something makes room for gaining something else. Eli thought about that. About Maggie's smile, Lucy's laugh, the empty years between then and now. Maybe, he said slowly. Or maybe the people we loved. Maybe they're still with us somehow. Watching. Hoping we'll find happiness again. Clara raised her head to look at him. You believe that? I'm starting to. On the 4th night of the storm, Eli woke to the sound of Emma crying. He was out of bed before he was fully conscious, moving toward the cradle where Clara had laid her after her last feeding. What's wrong? Clara appeared beside him, groggy with sleep. Eli touched Emma's forehead. His blood ran cold. She's burning up. Clara's face went white. No, not again. Get me cold water and cloths. Now. Clara ran. Eli lifted Emma, carefully cradling her against his chest. The baby was limp, her skin flushed and hot, her breathing shallow. Stay with me, little one, he murmured. Stay with me. Clara returned with water and rags. They worked together, pressing cool cloths to Emma's forehead, her wrists, her neck. The baby whimpered, but didn't open her eyes. This happened before, Clara said, her voice high and tight with fear. On the wagon train. This is why they left us. The fever came on fast and... Hey! Eli grabbed her hand. Look at me. Clara, look at me. She did. Her eyes were wild with terror. She's going to be okay, Eli said firmly. I'm going to ride to town and get Dr. Hayes. In this storm, you'll die out there. I won't. He squeezed her hand. I know this land. I know the way. I'll be back before dawn with the doctor. Eli. I'm not losing her. His voice cracked. I'm not losing either of you. Do you understand me? Clara stared at him. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Promise me you'll come back, she whispered. I promise. He kissed her hard, fast. Then he kissed Emma's burning forehead. "Keep her cool. Keep her hydrated. I'll be back." He grabbed his coat, his hat, paused at the door for one last look at them, his girls, his family, his whole world huddled by the fire. Then he walked out into the blizzard. The cold hit him like a wall. Eli could barely see 3 feet in front of his face. Wind drove ice into his skin, stole the breath from his lungs. He found his horse by feel more than sight, saddled her with numb fingers, mounted up. "Come on, girl," he said, urging her forward. "We've got work to do." The ride to town should have taken 2 hours. In the storm, it took 4. Eli lost the trail twice, had to backtrack, had to trust instincts honed by decades on this land. But he made it. Clearwater appeared out of the white like a ghost town. Eli rode straight to Dr. Hayes's house, pounded on the door until a lamp flickered to life inside. "What in God's name?" The doctor opened the door, saw Eli covered in ice, and stopped dead. "Mercer, is that you?" "My daughter." The words came out through chattering teeth. "She's sick. High fever. Please, you have to come." Dr. Hayes didn't hesitate. "Give me 2 minutes to get my bag." They rode back together, the doctor following Eli's horse through the impossible white. It took another 3 hours. When they finally stumbled through the cabin door, Clara screamed with relief. "Thank God, thank God." She threw herself at Eli, then immediately stepped back. "You're freezing. I'm fine. How is she?" "The same. Maybe worse. I don't know." Dr. Hayes was already at Emma's side, his practiced hands moving over her small body. He listened to her chest, checked her eyes, felt her throat. "How long has she been like this?" he asked. "Since midnight," Clara answered. "Maybe 8 hours. Any coughing, vomiting?" "No, just the fever." Dr. Hayes nodded slowly. "I don't think it's scarlet fever, or diphtheria. This looks like a simple childhood illness that's hit her hard because she was already weakened." "Will she live?" Clara's voice broke. "I believe so, with proper care." The doctor pulled medicine from his bag. "I'm going to give her something to bring the fever down. She needs fluids, rest, and constant monitoring for the next 48 hours. "I'm not leaving her side," Clara said. "Neither am I," Eli added. Dr. Hayes looked between them. A knowing smile crossed his tired face. "I heard rumors about you two," he said mildly. "Didn't believe them." "Whatever you heard," Clara started. "I heard that Eli Mercer found something to live for again." Dr. Hayes patted her hand. "I'd say the rumors were right." The next 2 days were the longest of Eli's life. He and Clara took turns watching Emma, sleeping in shifts, forcing each other to eat. Emma's fever rose and fell like waves. Sometimes she'd sleep peacefully. Other times she'd cry weakly, too exhausted to even open her eyes. On the second night, the fever spiked dangerously high. Clara broke down sobbing. "I can't do this again. I can't lose her too. I can't." "You're not going to lose her." Eli held her tight. "We're not going to lose her. She's a fighter, remember? Like her mama." "What if she's not strong enough?" "She is." He said it with conviction he wasn't sure he felt. "She has to be." They worked through the night, bathing Emma in cool water, getting drops of medicine past her tiny lips, praying with every breath. Near dawn, something changed. Emma's thrashing stilled. Her breathing deepened. Her skin, when Eli touched it, felt cooler. "Clara." He shook her awake. "Clara, feel her." Clara's hand trembled as she touched Emma's forehead. Her eyes went wide. "The fever's breaking," she whispered. "The fever's breaking," Eli confirmed. Clara collapsed against him, sobbing with relief. Eli held her, his own eyes burning. Emma stirred. Opened her eyes for the first time in days. "Da!" she croaked. Mama. Both words, clear as bells. Clara laughed through her tears. Yes, baby. Mama and Da are right here. Emma's tiny hand reached up, grabbed Eli's finger, held on tight. We're right here, Eli repeated, voice thick. And we ain't going anywhere. Ever. Dr. Hayes returned that afternoon to check on his patient. Well, he said, smiling at Emma's pink cheeks and alert eyes. Looks like someone's feeling better. Thanks to you, Clara said. Thanks to you both. The doctor packed up his bag. She's going to need rest and careful feeding for a while, but she's over the worst of it. We can't thank you enough. Eli shook the man's hand. Whatever I owe you. You can owe me a wedding invitation. Dr. Hayes's eyes twinkled. Martha Calloway tells me there's one coming. Clara blushed. Word travels fast. In Clearwater, faster than lightning. The doctor chuckled. I'm happy for you both. Truly, this town needs more love stories. After he left, Clara sank onto the settee exhausted. I thought we were going to lose her, she said quietly. Eli sat beside her, pulled her close. But we didn't. But we almost did. Clara's voice shook. And I realized something during those 2 days. What's that? She looked up at him. I don't want to wait. To get married. I don't want to waste any more time. Eli's breath caught. Clara. Life is short, Eli. We both know that better than anyone. Samuel was here one day and gone the next. You're Maggie and Lucy, too. She grabbed his hands. I don't want to spend another moment as anything other than your wife. I want to make it official. I want Emma to be your daughter in name, not just in heart. The circuit preacher won't be through for another month. Then we'll wait a month, but not a day longer. Clara squeezed his hands. Unless you're having second thoughts. Second thoughts. Eli laughed roughly. Clara. I'd marry you tonight if I could. I'd marry you right now in this cabin with Emma as our witness. Then it's settled. Clara smiled that beautiful, fierce smile that had captured his heart. 1 month, and then you're stuck with us forever. Can't think of anything I want more. He kissed her softly, gently. A promise renewed. Behind them, Emma babbled happily, reaching for her favorite wooden rattle. Da, she said. Mama, da. That's right, sweetheart. Eli scooped her up, held her between them. Your da loves your mama, and your mama loves your da, and we both love you more than anything in this whole world. Emma giggled and patted his face with her tiny hand. It was, Eli thought, the most perfect moment of his entire life. And then, without warning, everything changed. A knock at the door. Eli frowned. Dr. Hayes had just left. Martha wasn't due for another day. Stay here, he told Clara. He opened the door. A man stood on the porch, tall, rough-looking, eyes that swept over Eli with cold assessment. I'm looking for a woman, the man said. Clara Bennett, and her baby. Eli's blood turned to ice. Who's asking? Name's Josiah Mitchell. I'm her brother-in-law. The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. And I've come to take them home. Eli didn't move from the doorway. Brother-in-law, he repeated slowly. That's right. Josiah Mitchell stepped forward, trying to push past. Now, if you'll let me... I don't recall inviting you inside. Josiah's eyes narrowed. I don't need an invitation. I'm here for family. Eli! Clara's voice came from behind him, thin and frightened. Who is it? Josiah's face split into a smile that made Eli's skin crawl. Clara. There you are. He tried again to enter. I've been looking everywhere for you, darling. The whole family's been worried sick. Stay back. Clara's voice had changed. Hard now. Cold. Don't come any closer." Eli looked over his shoulder. Clara stood by the fireplace. Emma clutched tight against her chest. Her face was white as bone. "Clara, honey," Josiah started. "Don't call me that." Clara's whole body was trembling. "You have no right to call me that." Eli turned back to Josiah. "Seems like the lady doesn't want to see you." "The lady is confused." Josiah's friendly mask slipped, revealing something ugly underneath. "She's been through a lot. Lost her husband, my brother. She's not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking fine," Clara snapped. "I'm thinking you need to leave." "Clara." Josiah's voice hardened. "Samuel left everything to me. The house, the land, the money. And as Emma's closest male relative, I have legal rights. You have nothing." Clara stepped forward, eyes blazing. "Samuel left everything to me and Emma. I have the papers. I have his will." "Papers can be disputed. Wills can be contested." Josiah smiled again. "Especially when the widow runs off in the middle of the night without telling anyone." "I left because of you." Clara's voice cracked. "Because you wouldn't leave me alone. Because you kept saying Emma needed a father and you were willing to step in. Because I what?" Josiah took a step closer. "Because I wanted to take care of my brother's wife, his child." "Because you tried to force yourself on me," Clara screamed. The words hung in the air like gunshots. Eli felt something dark and dangerous rise up in his chest. "That's a lie," Josiah said, but his eyes flickered. "She's lying. Get off my land." Eli's voice was quiet, deadly calm. "Now wait just a minute." "I said get off my land." Eli stepped forward. "Or I'll put you off it. You can't threaten me. I have rights. Eli moved faster than thought. One moment Josiah was standing in the doorway. The next he was flat on his back in the snow, Eli's boot on his chest. "You have nothing," Eli said. "You come near Clara again, you come near that baby, and I'll kill you. That's not a threat. That's a promise." Josiah stared up at him, fear finally breaking through his arrogance. "This ain't over," he spat. "I'll go to the sheriff. I'll tell him you're holding her against her will." "You do that." "Do." Eli pressed down harder. "And while you're there, you can explain to him why a widow ran halfway across the country to get away from you." He released Josiah, stepped back. "Get up. Get on your horse. Get gone." Josiah scrambled to his feet, snow clinging to his coat. His face was twisted with rage. "You'll regret this," he said. "Both of you. The only thing I regret is not hitting you harder." Eli pointed toward the road. "Go." Josiah went. Eli watched until he disappeared over the ridge. Then he turned and walked back inside. Clara was exactly where he'd left her, shaking so hard she could barely stand. "He found us," she whispered. I thought we were far enough. I thought, hey." Eli crossed to her, took her face in his hands. "Look at me, Clara, look at me." She did. Her eyes were wild with terror. "He's gone. I sent him away. He's not going to hurt you." "You don't know that. You don't know what he's capable of. Tell me." Eli's voice was gentle but firm. "Tell me everything." Clara's legs gave out. Eli caught her, guided her to the settee, took Emma so Clara could speak freely. "After Samuel died," Clara began, her voice shaking, "Josiah came to help with the arrangements. At first he was kind, respectful. But then—" She stopped, swallowed hard. "He started coming by more often, staying longer, telling me a widow needed protection, telling me Emma needed a father figure." Her hands clenched in her lap. "One night he'd been drinking. He came to my room, told me it was time I accepted his proposal." "Proposal?" "He wanted to marry me, said it was the proper thing to do. Keep the family together. Keep Samuel's memory alive." Clara laughed bitterly. "When I refused, he—" He tried to... She couldn't finish. She didn't have to. Eli felt a cold rage settle in his chest. The kind of rage that went beyond anger into something deeper. Something that demanded justice. I fought him off, Clara continued. Hit him with a candlestick. He left, but he swore he'd be back. Said nobody refused a Mitchell. She looked up at Eli. That's when I decided to leave. Packed what I could carry, joined the first wagon train heading west. And he followed you. I didn't think he would. It's been months. I thought... Her voice broke. I thought I was finally safe. Eli set Emma in her cradle, then knelt in front of Clara. Took her hands. You are safe, he said. I won't let him touch you. I won't let him near you or Emma. You understand me? He'll come back. He always comes back. Let him try. Eli's jaw tightened. This is my land. You're going to be my wife. Emma's going to be my daughter. He wants to take you from me. He'll have to go through me first. I don't want you getting hurt because of me. Too late. Eli touched her face. I'm already in too deep, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Clara stared at him for a long moment. Then she collapsed into his arms, sobbing. Eli held her tight and made a silent promise. Whatever it took, whoever he had to fight, he would protect his family, even if it killed him. Word spread fast. By the next morning, half of Clearwater knew about the stranger who'd come looking for Clara Bennett. Martha Calloway arrived before noon, her husband Henry in tow. I heard there was trouble, Martha said, pushing her way inside. Is it true someone came for Clara? Her brother-in-law, Eli confirmed grimly. Claims he has rights to her and Emma. Rights. Martha's eyes flashed. What kind of rights? Clara explained again, her voice steadier now, but still raw. Martha's face grew darker with every word. That no-good snake, Martha spat when Clara finished. Chasing a widow halfway across the country because she wouldn't let him? She stopped, looked at Emma playing on her blanket. Well, he picked the wrong town to cause trouble in. What do you mean? Clara asked. I mean Clearwater takes care of its own. Martha straightened her shoulders. You're one of us now, Clara Bennett. Or you will be once you and Eli make it official. And we don't let outsiders come in and bully our people. She's right. Henry spoke up. He was a big man, quiet with kind eyes. I'll spread the word. Anyone sees that Mitchell fella, they'll know not to help him. That's not necessary, Clara started. It's already done. Martha patted her hand. Now, when's this wedding happening? Because I think we need to move it up. Eli and Clara exchanged looks. The circuit preacher won't be through for 3 more weeks, Eli said. Then we'll send for him early. Martha was already planning. Tell him there's an emergency, a woman in need of protection. He'll come. You think it'll matter? Clara asked. Being married? It'll matter plenty. A husband has legal rights over his wife's property and children. Once you're married to Eli, that Mitchell man can't touch you. Martha's smile was fierce. We'll make sure of it. The next 2 weeks were a blur of preparation. Martha organized everything with military precision. Fabric for Clara's dress. Flowers from the hothouse in town. Food for a reception. It doesn't need to be fancy, Clara kept saying. It needs to be proper, Martha insisted. This town hasn't had a wedding in 2 years. We're going to celebrate. Eli spent his days watching the horizon. He knew Josiah would be back. Men like that didn't give up easy. They took rejection as a challenge. But the days passed and there was no sign of him. Maybe he'd gotten the message. Maybe he'd given up. Eli didn't believe it for a second. 3 days before the wedding, Clara found him at the cottonwood tree. He was standing at Maggie's grave, hat in his hands, head bowed. Eli. He turned. His eyes were wet, but he wasn't crying. I was just talking to them, he said quietly. Telling them about you. About Emma. About what's going to happen. Clara walked to his side. Looked down at the simple wooden crosses. What did you tell them? That I found love again. That I'm going to be a father again. He paused. That I hope they're happy for me. Clara slipped her hand into his. I think they are. You do. I think. Clara chose her words carefully. I think people who love us want us to be happy, even after they're gone. I think Samuel would want me to find someone good, someone who'd take care of Emma the way he would have. And you think that's me? I know it is. Clara squeezed his hand. You're the best man I've ever known, Eli Mercer. Maggie was lucky to have you, and so am I. Eli pulled her close. They stood together at the graves, the wind soft around them, the silence peaceful instead of sad. I want to bring Emma here, Clara said. When she's older, I want her to know about Lucy, about the sister she would have had. Eli's breath caught. You'd do that? They're part of our family too, the ones we lost. Clara looked up at him. We carry them with us, don't we? In our hearts, in our memories, in the way we love the people who are still here. Yeah, Eli's voice was thick. We do. He kissed her forehead, held her close. And for the first time since Maggie died, standing at her grave didn't feel like drowning. It felt like saying goodbye. It felt like moving on. The night before the wedding, Eli finally opened the door. He stood in the hallway for a long time, key in hand, heart pounding. Clara was asleep on the settee. Emma was asleep in her cradle. The cabin was quiet. Just him and the door and 6 years of grief. He turned the key. The lock clicked open. Eli pushed the door inward. Moonlight spilled through the window, illuminating the room he hadn't entered since the day he buried his daughter. Everything was exactly as he'd left it. The cradle he'd built with his own hands. The rocking chair where Maggie had planned to nurse their baby. The tiny clothes folded on the shelf never worn. And on the small dresser the rag doll Maggie had sewn. Yellow yarn for hair. Button eyes. A crooked smile stitched with love. Eli walked to the dresser, picked up the doll. It was soft in his hands. Fragile. Full of memories. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I'm sorry I locked you away. I'm sorry I've been so scared to remember. No answer came. He didn't expect one, but something in his chest loosened. Something that had been wound tight for 6 years finally began to unspool. I'm getting married tomorrow, Eli continued. To a woman named Clara. She's good, Maggie. Kind and strong and brave. You would have liked her. He paused. And she has a daughter, Emma. She's just a baby, but she already feels like mine. The way Lucy felt like mine. He sat down in the rocking chair. It creaked under his weight. I'm going to give Emma this room. Give her Lucy's things. Let her have the life our daughter should have had. His voice cracked. I hope that's okay. I hope you understand. The moonlight shifted. For a moment, Eli could have sworn he saw something in the corner. A shape. A presence. But when he looked directly, nothing was there. Just memories. Just love. Just the ghosts of a life that might have been. Thank you, Eli said quietly, for loving me, for giving me Lucy, even for such a short time, for teaching me how to be a father. He stood still holding the rag doll. I'm going to try to be worthy of that, every day, for the rest of my life. He walked out of the room, but this time he didn't lock the door behind him. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and cold. Clara woke to find Eli already up brewing coffee, an unusual softness in his eyes. You look different, she said, accepting the cup he offered. Feel different. He sat beside her. I opened the room last night, Lucy's room. Clara's breath caught. You did? I want Emma to have it, if that's all right with you. Of course it's all right. Clara set down her cup, took his hands. Are you okay? Yeah. Eli smiled, and for the first time, it reached all the way to his eyes. I really am. Martha arrived 2 hours later with half the town behind her. Time to get ready, she announced, sweeping Clara into the bedroom. Eli, you get out. It's bad luck to see the bride before the wedding. That's just superstition. Out. Martha pointed to the door. Go check on the preacher. Make sure he hasn't gotten lost. Eli went. The next hour was a whirlwind of activity. Women Clara barely knew helped her into her dress, pale blue, simple, beautiful. They fixed her hair, pinched color into her cheeks, made her feel like someone worth marrying. You look lovely, Martha said, stepping back to admire her work. Eli's going to swallow his tongue. I hope not. I need him to say his vows. Martha laughed. That's the spirit. Emma sat on the bed dressed in white cotton with yellow ribbons, watching the proceedings with wide eyes. Mama, she said, reaching up. Pretty. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, sweetheart. None of that. Martha handed her a handkerchief. Save the crying for the ceremony. The ceremony took place in the main room of the cabin. Someone had brought wildflowers, despite the winter-cold hothouse blooms from town arranged in tin cans and mason jars. Someone else had cleared the furniture, set up chairs for the dozen guests who'd come to witness. Eli stood by the fireplace, Hank beside him as witness. He wore his best clothes clean and pressed boots polished. His hair was combed. His face was freshly shaved. And when Clara walked out of the bedroom, Emma in her arms, he stopped breathing. She was beautiful, not because of the dress or the flowers or any of the finery Martha had arranged. She was beautiful because she was here, because she was his. Because after everything life had taken from him, it had given him this: a second chance, a new beginning, a family. Reverend Whitfield cleared his throat. Shall we begin? The ceremony was simple. Traditional vows, simple words, nothing fancy or elaborate. But when Eli said, I do, his voice rang clear and strong. And when Clara said, I do, tears were streaming down her face. By the power vested in me, Reverend Whitfield proclaimed, I now pronounce you husband and wife. He smiled. You may kiss your bride. Eli cupped Clara's face in his hands. I love you, he whispered. I love you too. He kissed her. The room erupted in cheers and applause. Emma, caught between them, giggled and clapped her hands. Da! She squealed. Mama da! That's right, sweetheart. Eli took her from Clara's arms, held her close. Your da's married to your mama now. We're a real family. There's one more piece of business, Reverend Whitfield announced. Mr. Mercer. Eli nodded, handed Emma back to Clara. I want to formally adopt Emma Bennett as my daughter, he said loud enough for everyone to hear. To give her my name, to raise her as my own. Mrs. Mercer. The Reverend turned to Clara. Do you consent to this adoption? With all my heart, Clara said. Papers were signed, witnessed, made official. When it was done, Reverend Whitfield raised his hands. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. and Mrs. Eli Mercer and their daughter, Emma Rose Mercer. More cheers. More applause. Clara was crying openly now. So was Martha. So were half the women in the room. Eli just smiled. His wife, his daughter, his family. Finally, at last, everything he'd lost found again. The celebration lasted well into the evening. Food and drink and laughter filled the cabin. Stories were told. Toasts were made. Emma was passed from person to person, soaking up the attention like sunshine. By nightfall, the guests had gone. Eli and Clara stood on the porch watching the last wagon disappear down the road. Mrs. Mercer, Eli said softly. Clara smiled. Mr. Mercer. Has a nice ring to it. It does. She leaned into his side. I never thought, after Samuel. I never thought I'd feel this way again." "Neither did I." Eli wrapped his arm around her. "But here we are. Here we are." Emma was asleep inside, exhausted from the excitement. The cabin was warm, lit by firelight. Their cabin. Their home. "I have something for you," Eli said. "A wedding gift." "Eli, you've given me so much already." "This is different." He reached into his pocket, pulled out the rag doll. This was Lucy's. Maggie made it for her before she was born. Clara's breath caught. "Eli, I want Emma to have it. I want—" He paused, gathering himself. "I want our daughter to know about her sister. I want Lucy's memory to be part of our family." Clara took the doll carefully, reverently. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Maggie made it with love, just like she made everything with love." Eli's voice was thick. "I think she'd want Emma to have it. I think she'd be happy. That I found you. That I'm not alone anymore." Clara reached up, touched his face. "We're going to be okay," she said. "All of us. The ones who are here, and the ones we carry with us." "Yeah." Eli covered her hand with his. "We are." They stood together in the doorway, the winter night, spreading cold and clear around them, the stars blazing overhead. Behind them, Emma slept peacefully. Before them, the future waited. And for the first time in 6 years, Eli Mercer wasn't afraid of it. Then hoofbeats shattered the silence. Eli's hand went to his hip where his gun rested. 3 riders came over the ridge. In the moonlight, he could make out their shapes. Armed, moving fast. And in the lead, a face he recognized. Josiah Mitchell. He'd come back. And this time, he wasn't alone. Eli pushed Clara behind him. "Get inside," he said, his voice low and hard. "Take Emma. Lock the door." "Eli, now." Clara ran. Eli stepped off the porch, hand resting on his gun. The riders slowed as they approached, spreading out in a half circle. Josiah stopped 10 feet away. His smile gleamed in the moonlight. "Nice ceremony," he said. "Shame I missed the party." "You weren't invited." Eli's eyes swept over the other 2 men. Hired guns by the look of them. Hard eyes, cold faces. "What do you want, Mitchell?" "You know what I want." Josiah swung down from his horse. "My brother's wife. My brother's child. What's rightfully mine." "She's not your brother's wife anymore. She's mine. Married today, legal and proper. Marriage can be annulled." "Not this one." Josiah laughed. "You think a piece of paper is going to stop me? I've got witnesses who'll swear Clara's not in her right mind, that you took advantage of a grieving widow, that you're keeping her here against her will." Funny thing about witnesses, Eli didn't move, didn't blink. They can be wrong. They can also be bought. Josiah gestured to the men behind him. "See, I've got money, more than you'll ever have, and money talks out here. So does a 45. The air went still. Josiah's smile faltered, just for a moment. "You threatening me, Mercer?" "I'm promising you." Eli stepped forward. "You come for my wife again, you come for my daughter, and I'll put you in the ground next to my first family. That's not a threat. That's a guarantee." Big words for 1 man against 3. "He ain't alone." The voice came from the darkness to the left. Hank Dawson stepped into the moonlight, rifle raised. "Evening, boss," he said casually. "Thought you might need some company." Josiah spun. "Who the hell?" "That's just Hank." Another voice from the right. Henry Calloway emerged from behind the barn, shotgun across his arm. "I'm Henry, and that fella coming up behind you is Doc Hayes." Josiah whirled again. Dr. Hayes sat on horseback at the top of the ridge, blocking the road. "I'm just here to tend wounds," the doctor called down. "But I'm hoping I won't need to." Josiah's face went white. His hired guns exchanged nervous glances. This is none of your business, Josiah snarled. This is a family matter. Clara's family now. Martha's voice rang out. She appeared on the porch, a heavy skillet in her hand. And Clearwater takes care of its own. More figures emerged. Neighbors Eli barely knew. Ranchers from the far side of town. Men and women who'd come to the wedding and stayed when they heard trouble might be coming. A dozen people. Maybe more. All standing with him. Eli felt something loosen in his chest. Something he hadn't even known was tight. Looks like you miscalculated, he said to Josiah. Happens when you're used to pushing around people who have no one. This isn't over. Yeah, it is. Eli stepped closer. You're going to get on your horse. You're going to ride out of Wyoming, and you're never going to come back. And if I don't, then we'll bury you here, and nobody will ever know what happened to Josiah Mitchell. Eli's voice dropped to a whisper. Your choice. Josiah stared at him. His jaw worked, his hands clenched. For a long moment, Eli thought he might actually try something. Then Josiah spat on the ground. Keep her, he said. Keep the brat. You deserve each other. He mounted his horse, jerked the reins hard. This ain't over, he called as he rode away. You hear me? This ain't. His voice faded into the night. Eli watched until the riders disappeared. Then his legs nearly gave out. Easy there. Hank was at his side, steadying him. It's done. He's gone. Yeah. Eli let out a breath he felt like he'd been holding for years. Yeah, he's gone. The door flew open. Clara ran out, Emma in her arms. Eli! She threw herself at him. Are you hurt? Did they? I'm fine. He wrapped his arms around them, both held on tight. We're all fine. I was so scared. I heard voices and I thought, I know. He kissed her forehead. But it's over now. He's not coming back. How do you know? Eli looked at the neighbors still standing around, their weapons still ready. At Martha on the porch. At Hank and Henry and Dr. Hayes. Because I'm not alone anymore, he said. And neither are you. Clara buried her face in his shoulder and cried. Emma patted his cheek with her tiny hand. Da, she said. Da, okay? Yeah, sweetheart. Eli's voice cracked. Da's okay. We're all okay. The crowd dispersed slowly. Handshakes, nods, quiet words of support. You need anything, you let us know, Henry said before he left. That goes for any time, day or night. We're family now, Martha added, hugging Clara tight. All of us. When everyone was finally gone, Eli and Clara sat on the porch in the silence. Emma had fallen back asleep, exhausted by the excitement. The night was quiet again, peaceful. I didn't know, Clara said softly, that people could be like that strangers could become family so fast. Neither did I. Eli took her hand. I spent 6 years pushing everyone away. Thought it was safer to be alone. And now I know better. He brought her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles. We're stronger together. All of us. Clara leaned her head on his shoulder. What happens now? She asked. Now. Eli smiled. Now we live. Really live. We raise our daughter. We work this land. We build a life together. Simple as that. Simple as that. Clara was quiet for a moment. I love you, Eli Mercer. I love you too, Clara Mercer. The words felt natural now. Right, like they'd always been waiting to be said. We should go inside, Clara said. It's cold. In a minute. Eli wrapped his arm around her. I just want to sit here for a while, with you, with this feeling. What feeling? Eli thought about it. About the long, dark years behind him. About the bright future ahead. Hope, he said finally. I haven't felt it in a long time. I want to remember what it's like. Clara smiled and held him tighter. They sat together until the moon was high, wrapped in each other's warmth, watching the stars wheel overhead. Tomorrow would bring work, challenges, the ordinary struggles of building a life in a hard land. But tonight was for peace. Tonight was for gratitude. Tonight was for love. Spring came early that year. The snow melted in March, revealing green grass and wildflowers that Clara had never seen. Birds returned to the cottonwood tree, filling the mornings with song. Emma took her first steps on a warm afternoon in April. Eli was in the yard repairing fence when he heard Clara scream. He dropped everything, ran for the cabin, burst through the door with his heart in his throat, and found Clara kneeling on the floor, arms outstretched. Emma stood in front of her, wobbly, uncertain, but standing. "She's walking," Clara gasped. "Eli, she's walking. Come here, sweetheart." Eli crouched down, held out his hands. "Come to Da." Emma took one step, then another, then a third, and fell into his arms. "Da," she crowed triumphantly. "Da, da, da." Eli laughed. Actually laughed loud and free and full of joy. "That's my girl," he said, swinging her up. "That's my brave girl." Clara was crying. Eli was close to it. "Her first steps," Clara said. "I never thought, after everything." "She's strong." Eli kissed Emma's cheek. "Like her mama. Like her Da." They stood together, the three of them, in the cabin that had once been so empty and was now so full. "I want another one," Clara said suddenly. Eli blinked. "What?" "A baby." Clara's cheeks flushed. "I want to give Emma a brother or sister. I want to fill this house with children." "Clara, unless you don't want—" Eli kissed her, hard, deep, full of promise. When he pulled back, Clara was breathless. "Is that a yes?" she asked. "That's a hell yes." Eli grinned. "I want a house full, as many as God gives us." Clara laughed and threw her arms around his neck. Emma caught between them, giggled, and patted both their faces. "Mama d'amore." "You heard her," Clara said. "More. More." Eli agreed, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. On Emma's first birthday, the whole town came to celebrate. Martha organized everything, of course. Food and games and presents piled high. Children Emma's age were set loose in the yard, while their parents watched and talked and laughed. Eli stood apart for a moment, taking it all in. A year ago, he'd been alone, empty, waiting to die without really living. Now his yard was full of people. His cabin was full of love. His arms were full of a little girl who called him Da and looked at him like he hung the moon. "What are you thinking about?" Clara appeared at his side, slipping her hand into his. "Just how different everything is." Eli shook his head. "A year ago I found you in my barn, half frozen to death. Now look at us." "Look at us," Clara agreed. She placed her free hand on her stomach. "All four of us." Eli's heart stopped. "Clara, are you saying—" Dr. Hayes confirmed it this morning. Her smile was radiant. "We're going to have a baby, Eli. In the fall." Eli couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. A baby. His baby. Their baby. "Eli?" Clara's smile faltered. "Say something." He grabbed her, lifted her off her feet, spun her around. "Yes," he shouted. "Yes, yes, yes." Everyone stopped to stare. Eli didn't care. Let them stare. Let the whole world watch. "We're having a baby," he announced to anyone who would listen. "I'm going to be a father again." Cheers erupted. Congratulations poured in. Martha burst into tears. Henry clapped Eli on the back hard enough to bruise. Emma, not understanding, but sensing the excitement, clapped her hands and squealed. "Baby," she said. "Baby, baby." "That's right, sweetheart." Eli scooped her up, held her close. "You're going to be a big sister." Sister. Maybe brother, Clara corrected, laughing. We don't know yet. Doesn't matter. Eli pulled them both close. Boy or girl, it's ours. That's all that matters. The party lasted until sunset. When everyone finally left, Eli and Clara sat on the porch, watching the sky turn pink and gold. Emma was asleep inside, worn out from her big day. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up, Clara said quietly. That this is all a dream. If it is, don't wake me up. Eli laced his fingers through hers. I want to dream this forever. Eli. Clara turned to face him. I need to tell you something. What is it? I was scared when I found out about the baby. Scared that history would repeat itself. That I'd lose this one too, the way I almost lost Emma. The way you lost Lucy. Eli's chest tightened. Clara. But then I realized something. She touched his face. Fear is just the price we pay for love. And I'd rather love fiercely and risk losing than hold back and never really live. When did you get so wise? I learned it from you. Clara smiled. From watching you open that door. From watching you let go of the past without forgetting it. From watching you choose hope over safety. Eli didn't have words, so he kissed her instead. Long and slow, and full of everything he couldn't say. When they finally broke apart, the first stars were appearing overhead. Come on, Clara said, standing. Let's go inside. Our family is waiting. Our family. The words hit Eli like a physical blow. He looked at the cabin, at the light glowing in the windows, at the life he'd built from the ashes of his grief. A wife who loved him. A daughter who adored him. A baby on the way. A year ago, he'd had nothing. Now, he had everything. Coming, he said. He followed Clara inside. The door closed behind them. And the night settled peaceful and quiet over the little ranch in Wyoming, where a broken man had found healing and a desperate woman had found home. The baby came in October, a boy, strong and healthy with his father's gray eyes and his mother's stubborn chin. They named him Samuel, after Clara's first husband. Are you sure? Eli had asked when she suggested it. You don't have to. I want to. Clara had held his hand. Samuel gave me Emma. He was a good man, and this way he'll always be part of our family. Eli had understood. They added a new name to the family Bible that day. Samuel Eli Mercer, son of Eli and Clara, brother of Emma Rose. Below it in Eli's careful handwriting were two older entries. Margaret Ann Mercer, beloved wife. Lucy Grace. Mercer, beloved daughter. The past and the present woven together. Loss and love existing side by side. It was, Eli thought, exactly as it should be. On Christmas Eve, 1 year to the day since he'd found Clara in his barn, Eli took his family to the cottonwood tree. The graves were covered in fresh snow. Eli had placed winter flowers there that morning, the hothouse kind Martha sold at the store. I wanted you to meet them, he said quietly. Maggie, Lucy, this is Clara, and Emma, and little Samuel. Clara stood beside him, Samuel in her arms, Emma holding Eli's hand. Hello, Clara said softly. I've heard so much about you both. Emma, now almost 2, looked up at her father. Who, da? Your sisters, Eli said. The ones who came before. Emma considered this with the seriousness only a toddler could muster. Angels, she asked. Eli's throat closed. Yes, sweetheart. Angels. Hi, angels. Emma waved at the graves. I'm Emma. This is Sammy. We're a family. Clara made a choked sound. Eli lifted Emma up, held her close. We're a family, he repeated. All of us. The ones who are here and the ones who watch over us. They stood together in the snow, the living and the dead, united by love. And Eli felt for the first time in 7 years completely at peace. That night, after the children were asleep, Eli and Clara sat by the fire. It was quiet, peaceful, the kind of silence that didn't need filling. "Do you ever think about it?" Clara asked. "How different things could have been." "Sometimes." Eli stared into the flames. "If you'd chosen a different barn, if I'd checked the stock an hour later, if the blizzard had been worse, we might have died." "You might have." Eli took her hand. "But you didn't. You found me, or I found you. Either way, we ended up here. Here is good. Here is perfect." Clara leaned against him. "I was so scared that night, so sure it was the end. And then you appeared with your lantern, and you carried us through the snow, and you saved us." "You saved me too," Eli said. "You just don't know it." "I do know it." Clara looked up at him. "I see it in your eyes. The difference from when I first woke up in your cabin. You were so closed off then, so guarded. I was afraid. And now, still afraid." Eli smiled. "But I've learned that fear doesn't have to stop you. You can be scared and still move forward. You can hurt and still heal." "That's the bravest kind of courage," Clara said. "Feeling the fear and doing it anyway. I learned it from a woman who walked through a blizzard with a baby." Eli kissed her forehead. "You're the brave one, Clara Mercer. I'm just trying to keep up." Clara laughed softly. "We're quite a pair." "We are." Eli pulled her closer. "And I wouldn't have it any other way." They sat together until the fire burned low, wrapped in each other's warmth, listening to the silence of a house full of sleeping children. Outside, snow began to fall, soft, quiet, peaceful. Another Christmas Eve, another year gone by. But this time, Eli wasn't alone. This time, he had everything. Years passed. Emma grew tall and strong with her mother's dark hair and her father's quiet strength. Samuel followed, then two more twins, a boy and a girl, born on a summer day when the wildflowers were blooming. The cabin expanded. Extra rooms, a bigger barn, more land under cultivation. Eli's hair went gray. Clara's went silver. But the love between them never dimmed. They raised their children on the ranch, teaching them to work the land, to care for animals, to value family above all else. They told stories by the fire, about a desperate night in a blizzard, about two broken people who found each other, about the courage it takes to love again after loss. And every Christmas Eve, they walked to the cottonwood tree. Every year the family grew larger. Children first, then grandchildren. New names added to the family Bible, each one a blessing. But they never forgot the ones who came before. Maggie, Lucy, Samuel. The absent ones who made the present ones possible. On Eli's 70th birthday, Clara found him at the graves. He stood with his head bowed, hat in his hands, just as he had for decades. "Eli." She touched his shoulder. "You all right?" "Better than all right." He turned to her, and his eyes were bright with tears. "I was just thinking about that night, the night I found you. That was 40 years ago. Feels like yesterday." Eli took her hand. "And also like a lifetime." "It was a lifetime. Our lifetime." Clara squeezed his fingers. "A good one. The best one." Eli looked back at the graves. "I thought my life was over when I buried them. I thought there was nothing left for me but waiting to die. And then?" "And then you fell asleep in my barn." He smiled. "And everything changed." Clara leaned her head on his shoulder. "You saved us. We saved each other." They stood together in the winter sun, two old people who had once been young and desperate and lost. Behind them at the cabin, their children were preparing a birthday celebration. Grandchildren ran and played in the yard. The house was full of noise and life and love. Everything Eli had thought he'd lost forever. Everything he'd found again on a cold Christmas night. "Ready to go back?" Clara asked. "In a minute." Eli pressed a kiss to her silver hair. I just want to stand here a little longer. With you. With them. Take all the time you need. They watched the sun move across the sky, the shadows lengthen, the light turn golden. And when they finally walked back to the cabin hand in hand, Eli Mercer knew the truth that had taken him so long to learn. That love doesn't end with death. That hope doesn't die with loss. That broken hearts can heal if you're brave enough to let them. He'd found Clara sleeping in his hayloft on a Christmas night, frozen and desperate, clinging to her baby. He'd carried her through the blizzard. He'd opened his home. He'd opened his heart. And everything had changed. Not just for that night, not just for that year, forever. The door opened. Grandchildren spilled out laughing, calling for them. Eli smiled. Coming, he called back. He took Clara's hand and walked toward the light. Toward his family. Toward the life he'd built from the ashes of the one he'd lost. And he never looked back. Because the past was behind him. The future was ahead. And the present, this moment, this love, this family, was everything he'd ever wanted and more than he'd ever dreamed. On a Christmas night long ago, a lonely rancher found a dying woman in his barn. He saved her life. She saved his soul. And together they built something that would last forever. A family, a legacy, a love story for the ages, the end.